Murder on the Main Line, Chapter 8, Interference. Sloane gripped the wheel and did her best to breathe. There was a change in plan. She hated those. Changes led to rushing, and that morning was no different. They were in a big heaping rush, and in more ways than one. Sloane wanted to drive their unmarked Caprice 10,000 miles an hour. She only had 2 days to prove their point. It wasn't Rachel. She felt the weight of everyone on her, their dirty looks, the whispers as she walked by. Mateo, unusually quiet. It all unnerved her. She wanted to drive that gray government car through a plate glass window and tear across the road, tires screeching and smoking, and careen to the next investigation lead with the hubcap spinning off. But she kept it at 35 while the radio squawked every now and then, the blinker ticking. The original plan was to meet the child and her mother at the Philadelphia Child's Alliance on Hunting Park Avenue. The place had child-friendly interview rooms, but they learned that Beth had special needs at the 11th hour, as most news reached them. The child was 12 and blind. So, off to Quakertown with them, to Aunt Leslie's place. And they were to bring Anne along, a child advocate in glasses from Westchester. She rode along in the back seat and spilled the office tea with Mateo for the long run up the Blue Route. Quakertown, PA, a sleeper suburb of little brick homes from the Steel days. The town was as old and as American as the Liberty Bell, which was once hidden there. A small yellow rancher with a short driveway. The gray Caprice rolled up and parked at the curb. Sloane, Mateo, and Anne climbed out in their cop parkas and approached the residence under the chirping birds and crows. Aunt Leslie came to the door in a tracksuit. She'd just been working out. A little sweaty and overly gracious, she let them into the house and offered them coffee and such. They declined. Mateo added they wouldn't be there long. Sloane wasn't so sure. She snuck him a side-eye. "They'll be right out," said Aunt Leslie in a warbly voice. She went upstairs. The detective sat awkwardly on the living room furniture and waited under the grandfather clock's glare. Heather walked in with Beth on her arm, leading her in. The little girl had shoulder-length hair, blonde. She wore dark, round glasses, which gave her a little bohemian feel that Sloane liked. She was pale and wore baggy jeans and an anime t-shirt. She sat on the chair opposite Sloane and listened to the room for a moment. Heather peeled off to the corner. "Hello, Beth. I'm Detective Sloane Taylor. I'm here with my partner, Detective Mateo. He's an idiot. You don't need to worry about him. And also, I'm here with Anne. She's a child advocate. She's just here to make sure we do everything right and you're okay with all of everything that we say. Is that all right?" Beth said yes. Calm. Sloane could tell the girl was still taking a detailed inventory of them and where they were in the room. It felt like sitting in a space with a highly sensitive barometer. "Beth, we're all really sorry for your loss, okay? Just want you to know that. It's terrible. Losing your dad like that. We're all really sorry," said Sloane. "We want to get to the bottom of this and bring some closure to you and your family. That's why we're all here." At the mention of her father, Beth tensed her jaw but held it together. She was putting on a strong front. They regressed through the initial questions. At one point, Sloane said, "Did you hear or sense anything that was weird with your dad?" "It's been a bit of a rough year," said Heather, "with the stalkers and the text. Everything was kind of weird." "I'm sorry," said Sloane, "but we really need Beth to answer for herself, okay?" They had a brief, tense exchange. An exchange where Sloane never let her professional face drop for a moment. She smiled as she listened to Heather complain about how she was just trying to help. She also smiled when she explained to Heather that they really needed Beth to answer for herself. Heather agreed, but did not leave. She sat in a rocking chair in her corner near the window and watched them. Sloane gave Heather a wary look and continued. "Go ahead, Beth," she said. "Anything weird with your dad?" "No." Now, Beth might have looked a little cool in her round, dark glasses, But Sloane watched her swallow hard with that answer. Mateo picked it up too. Sloane let the silence hang there for a moment while Beth picked at her finger. Something was up in that house. Okay, Sloane said. But did anything change, though? Any changes in routines lately? Anything out of the ordinary? Beth sat there for a moment, thinking. Heather cut back in. Well, there was that time you thought you heard someone out back, right, sweetie? Mrs. Winslow, said Sloane. I'm going to have to ask you to go to the kitchen with Officer Mateo, please. She said it in a professional way that left no room for response. Mateo did not hesitate. He got up and did his courteous bouncer thing and led Heather, complaining, to the kitchen. He just kept telling her that he knew, and that he said he'd take them up on that cup of coffee. Sloane sat there quietly while Mateo escorted Heather out. She smiled pleasantly and realized that Beth couldn't see her smile, and then she felt self-conscious about it for a moment before she waved it off with her mental cop training and resumed the interview. She said, Sorry, Beth. I hope this is okay. It's just easier to talk this way with less interruptions. Your mom is right there, and we can bring her back at any time, okay? Beth agreed and sat there, waiting for the next question. There was something off about the calm demeanor of this child. She was quiet, and yet it seemed like she was waiting for the right question. So, anything out of the ordinary? Asked Sloane. Only that my dad is dead, said Beth. She let the answer land and just sit there. Sloane couldn't help but be impressed. I know, she said. Let's talk about that. Can you think of anyone that might want to hurt your dad? My dad operated on people, said Beth. Sometimes they, died? Yeah, and their families would get mad at him for it. I could see that, said Sloane. So, any family members in particular? I've heard Mom and Dad arguing about the people texting him, but nobody was a name that I knew. Did your Mom and Dad argue a lot? No, said Beth. Sloane watched her clench down hard and fidget. Another lie. She thought, what is this deception about? Beth, are you sure? I feel like you're holding something back. You can talk here. You're safe. I'm sure, said Beth. Okay. So maybe your mom and dad didn't fight in front of you. Would you hear them fighting in other rooms? Was it tense in the house in other ways? No, screamed Beth with a red face. The outburst was so sudden it jump-scared Anne a little. Beth began shaking and crying and rocking in her chair. We need to take a break, said Anne. And Leslie came down the stairs asking questions. Heather rushed in from the kitchen. Mateo followed her out, protesting. She said, What's going on? We're very sorry, said Anne. She was standing behind Beth's chair, rubbing her back. The detective struck a nerve. It took them several minutes to calm the women down, enough for them to continue. They gave Beth some water and tried to resume the interview, but she was reduced to one-word answers at that point. She was closed off and not cooperating. It wasn't going well, and Heather was getting irate. Sloane apologized to Beth for making her upset and touched her hand and said, Can you call me if I give you a phone number? Kinda. I mean, you need to type the number in Braille. Sloane thought for a moment. She said, You got any paper clips? Yes. Beth asked her mother to get them from the bedroom. With a huff, Heather got the paper clips and returned. Sloane took 10 of them and bent each into a number and handed it to Beth in order, saying the number as she handed it. Oddly, it felt like a quiet ritual between the two, while Mateo and Anne gently explained why they were leaving a number and how they were going to be on their way soon to Heather. Beth took each paperclip and committed it to memory. They thanked Heather and Beth for their time and left. They received a cold send-off from the ladies. Something going on with that kid, said Mateo in the car. They were on their way back to the Winslow house, the scene of the murder. Yeah, something going on in that family, said Sloane. Could just be the naughty shit going on, you know what I mean? You saw the texts. Yeah, said Sloane. But still, you're right. There's something going on with that kid. She watched the highway flash under the car and the cornfields in the distance and thought about her husband. To their surprise, most of the yellow tape was still up at the Winslow estate. It sagged sadly on that gloomy, rainy day, the remnants of the murder carnival. As they pulled up the driveway, they saw the cleaning lady through the windshield, waddling from the mailbox with a bundle under her arm. What was her name again? Asked Sloan. Darlene. That's right. They parked and got out of the car and approached her. I'm just here, getting mail, said Darlene nervously as they walked up. She had a dove face, and her eyes, 2 black pearls. They didn't stop it. It's okay, said Sloan. We're just here following up. We haven't met yet. I'm Sloan Taylor. I work with Officer Mateo here. I believe you've met. He said hello to her in Spanish and asked, Were you the person who called 911, yes? Yes, she said. I found the body. It was horrible. I am sorry, Senora, said Mateo. I can imagine it was quite a shock. Have you remembered anything else since we last talked? You mean since we last talked, or since I last talked to that other detective? Because he was just here. Wait, said Sloan. Another detective was here? Mateo translated for her. Darlene said yes, plainly. What was his name? Asked Mateo. He didn't say. I asked, too. Mateo looked at Sloan hard and translated. Sloan thought for a moment quickly and pulled out her phone and opened her social media feed and typed in Mike Serrano and found a picture of him and showed it to Darlene. Mateo said, Was it this man? Yes, she said. What did he do while he was here? Asked Sloan through Mateo. I don't really know. He said he was here to check for additional evidence. It seemed like he was just really looking for something. He kept going through the trash. Did he take anything? Yes, said Darlene. It looked like an empty package for a watch or a cell phone or something. You know the plastic casing they come in? Oh, like the clamshell packaging, said Mateo. Yes, said the cleaning woman. Sloan looked at Mateo. They didn't have to say anything else. It was not the time to discuss, not in front of this woman. They covered a few other questions with Darlene, the cleaning lady, and told her to have a nice day and went into the empty house for another tour. Sloan followed Mateo through the front door. It was still inside. The murder that happened upstairs hung over everything, like a watching ghost. She closed the door and they walked into the kitchen. Jesus Christ, said Mateo. What the fuck was he doing here? I have no idea, said Sloan. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm sure as hell going to find out.